So you'll have to hit got it.
Me?
I think it might or might not. It might not ask you. So I don't
No.
think well. Okay. All right. So here we are. It's Jennifer and Whitney, and we're here to talk about the eclipse in Aries, the solar eclipse that's happening on Monday. And we're excited to share a little bit about that and talk about Aries. And then I'm going to share a little bit of like a somatic practice for everyone to help them with these eclipse crazies. I'm just gonna call it. There's a lot of I would say a lot of energy in the collective that there's an you know it's like a there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of angst. There's a lot of energy, and that's and we could say that and I could say that about anything, but we're talking about the solar energy being eclipsed. And so you have solar energy in yourself. And so the whole collective is experiencing this. And so this is creating a lot of it's like a lot of activity in a very fiery way in the world. So and that might mean that you feel deficient in fire um, also. So it might show up in the opposite. But anyway, I'm going to let Whitney kind of share a little bit about what she's calling it, the and so before I let her talk about what she's calling the asshole eclipse, and and she'll tell you why she's calling it that. And
Uh,
yeah, and so we're doing basically we're pirates. It's politically incorrect relationship astrology that involves souls. So welcome.
there we go. Pirate.
We're pirates. Arg.
Arg.
So go ahead, lay some what we need to know about Aries, like what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, if everybody else is talking about something, I usually don't want to talk about it, right? Because I don't want to do what everybody else is doing, and I usually avoid it. But we kind of can't avoid this. So Aries is everybody's favorite asshole, or least favorite asshole. But Aries has no problem being an asshole, and that's the whole. That's kind of like the most simplified version of this event because as we talked about last week, Libra is all about relationships and other people and can be overly accommodating
Mhm.
and not hold boundaries and take care of themselves, right?
Mhm.
So, the opposite of that, the complement of that, the other side of the spectrum is Aries.
Mhm.
And Aries has no problem putting themselves first. Aries wants to be first. Aries is competitive. Aries does what it wants to do when it wants to do it and doesn't really give a shit if you like it or not, right? So the nice way to say that is Aries is about boundaries. That's what everybody's saying about this eclipse. Oh, this is about boundaries. And it is in that way that's like, if you start holding a boundary in your life with some people who walk on you, all of a sudden
Mhm.
they're going to say, oh, you're being an asshole. Or
That's
they
what
think they feel like they're going to call you an asshole because like now you're not usable anymore for whatever it is that they needed. Right. And I think that sums it up pretty well.
well, I like
There's
go ahead, sorry.
um well, so there's the obviously the eclipses because of the north node, right? The nodes are where eclipses take place. And the eclipse we had 2 weeks ago in Libra was on the south node, which is the
Mhm.
past stuff. We talked about that. So this is the now and future stuff, like self, right? So the and then there's the Chiron aspect. Everyone, it's conjunct Chiron, which is karmic, and it's the wounded healer. And I'm sure everybody's sick and tired of hearing about that. But if you haven't dug deep inside yourself and you don't know yourself, it could bring up some pretty traumatizing things. And it might happen in a fast, aggressive way because this is Aries and Aries is aggressive, right? There's fire, you might get burned, figuratively or literally. And if you did do the work and you do know yourself and you don't have a lot of
Mhm.
dark corners, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Mhm.
then this could be like some type of beautiful transformation, right? Like a liberation of some kind.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great. Yeah.
right. So there might be a serious polarization taking place. Certain people are having this really painful experience, and some people are like, wow, this is amazing. Now, you know, I don't get angry, I don't get triggered, and I don't get like all these things. Like, um, yeah, and then there's the Mercury conjunction, because Mercury is going to be conjunct this event at the same right now too. And we all know Mercury's in Gatorade right now, and that means all the things that come along with that. But communication when Mercury is in Aries or in a fire sign in general, but Aries very particularly is very forward, is very direct, is very like, you know, fuck around, find out. And
Mm.
so everything about it has this asshole feel. I mean, okay, so the other thing about Aries, and I maybe should have said this first, is that there's obviously a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
The worst side of Aries is somebody who's totally self-centered and narcissistic and maybe even violent, right? And then the other bad side of that would be like the crybaby, because Aries is the infant, right? Taurus is a toddler. Then, as you know, it progresses through ages of the human experience.
Hmm.
So when Aries is not grounded or badly aspected, it's a crybaby, and it's nobody wants anything to do with it. Okay, but in the middle, in a balanced, well aspected, grounded
Hmm.
fashion, Aries is the starter and initiates things and makes things happen. It's the warrior, it's the protector. It's like the beginning of spring, right? Like we need an ability to take action. And
Hmm.
Aries has no problem making a decision on where to go and how to get there. Come along if you want or don't. I'm going.
That's great.
So
It makes me,
that's
oh, sorry.
that was it. That was like that's basically like
That's basically the whole thing.
asshole eclipse. Everyone's like trying to be all deep and philosophical about it. And I was thinking today, I'm like, I'm not trying to do astrology for astrologers, because there's astrologers that do that, right? I'm doing astrology for people who don't know anything about astrology and don't want to have to learn a whole new something in order to understand the influences that are happening. So it's the
Well,
asshole eclipse.
yeah, so because it reminds me of so like the energy of it, like when you're talking about Aries, a starter, and spring, it's like the energy that the plant needs to push up from
Yes.
like from under the ground into the light, like boom, like that. It's like this, and it might not be that way for the plant, right? But as far as like growth and
Well, it doesn't have any outside guidance. It just knows in the dark which way to go, and it
right.
goes there.
Mhm. It's just, and so
So,
you need that kind of force. And then sometimes I think, like, if you think about it, like if you're saying, Aries is the infant. So, and if you have Chiron and Aries, and this is where your wounded healer is, it's possible that some of the wounds you might not even have words for because they happened before words formed in your, like, in your memory. Like, so I think about that's why it can be such an asshole because it doesn't necessarily know why it's wounded. It doesn't have, and it doesn't really have a conscious way of like saying, well, I remember when this happened. So it's a whole different level. And then even thinking about as an infant, like you're so spongy that it could also be it could be a wound that you picked up like from another person that you're living out. That's not even yours.
mm.
So I like think about all those things as you're sharing about this and I really love, I mean, yeah, sometimes we need to be assholes. Like I think we're so afraid to be assholes. Like
You
we
have to
really
tell,
are.
and you have to take care of yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people, right? This
Mhm.
is this is the basic premise, and there's so I don't know, I don't want to get off topic, but like the toxic positivity movement
Yeah, that's
is
fine. Not
like
all-
comes to mind because those people don't want to look at the ugly parts of themselves that they might be unaddressed. And
Mhm.
then they just want to say yes to everything. And you can't say yes to everything. And you can't say yes to everybody. You have to say no. You have to learn how to say no. Actually, what is one of the first words that a toddler or that a baby learns? Is no.
No, it's right. And that's like how you develop autonomy and independence, and you use that no. And so how the parents respond to no can create a whole bunch of stuff for people, because then, it's like depending on how your no is received, it's a big deal.
Right.
And I can remember being little, and like really little, and there were things I know, like one thing is like I remember my mother saying that, like, not that I wasn't like a tantrumy child. I wasn't a difficult child, but when I didn't want to do something, I would say no, and it was respected because I wasn't a tantrumy child.
Right.
So like they knew, it was kind of like, oh, she's actually, it's like, so it's an interesting, like, just a reflection, and be I would say, like, just I'm just going to give people reflections based on what you're sharing, to think about, like, even what no feels like in your body. Like, can you even get that out, and can you feel it in your body, and can you just exercise your right to know? And even Mark
Is there
Passio.
is there guilt and shame associated with the
Right.
word no? And
Right.
that's going to be a very big thing.
Yeah. Like, so Mark Passio, who's all about natural law, he says the most sacred word that exists is no.
Haha.
It's like the most sacred word. So, when I heard that, I thought, well, yeah, it is, because there's so many people now not saying no. So I'm wondering collectively if we're going to be pushed into a big no to something that happens.
Yeah, that seems to be the certain people's narrative.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, are we, because I think about, with all the things that have been going on, and, throughout our lifetime, but like that's gotten louder since 2020, how many people have not been able to say no? And so are they locked in? And maybe like this eclipse will help them get out of their guilt and shame. And like they might be pushed maybe in their own personal narrative. And like I said, maybe a collective narrative where we're like, oh, hell no. Hell to the
Yeah,
no. Hmm?
they get liberated.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what's it going to take? So I feel like there's that pushback of like, how much are you guys going to take? How much abuse are you going to take collectively? How much crap are you going to, just, accept? I think
Yeah.
yeah. So who knows? I mean, like, there's so
Well,
much.
especially over here where you and I live on this island because of the different cultures, because of Filipino and Japanese culture, and how you're not supposed to say no,
Right.
how how you just go along and be, you know,
Mhm.
modest and don't rock the boat and don't stand up to anything. You just go along. I think that's why our lockdown was so extreme.
Well, because the typically.
What I was saying a couple years ago is that those cultures were weaponized against those people because if you know how people are conditioned to respond to certain
Mhm.
things, then you can just nail them with it.
Well, I think the aloha was weaponized. Like, oh, it's not aloha if you don't wear a mask. It's not aloha if you, I'm like, no, that's not what aloha is. And so, because people, look, it's not my culture. That aloha does not come from my culture, but from what I understand, from what people who are in the culture have said to me, it's not about not saying no. I mean, so, and typically, like, just based, and we know that the Western side of things is more assertive and more aggressive and more dominant, and the Eastern side of things has been more passive. But like what I see in the Eastern is it's more passive aggressive. There's a passive
Yeah.
aggression.
And then living in a place like this where there's clashes of those two cultures,
Mhm.
um, the passive aggressive wanted to point fingers at the Western way of doing things and demonize it,
Mhm.
and then demonize people who weren't gonna comply.
Right. And I wouldn't even say that Western is necessarily like about compliance or versus non-compliance. I would say like that they're just, if there is a, if it's known in general to be more assertive and more aggressive, then you're gonna have that ability, you're gonna have that in you to access because it's more acceptable in the culture.
Mhm.
It's more seen in the culture out loud in your face. And it depends
Right.
on where you live, like depending on where where you grow up. And I remember, even just moving here from New Jersey, I'm like, Whitney and I just had this the other day. Nobody honks their horn. Like, first of all, my horn, if I,
Okay.
my horn, if you honk it, it's like the lamest horn ever. But like, you sometimes need to use that thing if someone's sitting at a light and it's green and they're not moving, they're on their phone or whatever. And but you get the stink eye if you lay on your horn for any reason.
Oh yeah, I'm not afraid of the stink eye.
Yeah,
I use my
yeah. Yeah. Well, you get the stink eye or worse. So, um,
well, yeah. Like the other day, somebody ran into my truck because I honked my horn at them.
yeah, like there. So there was some aggression.
Very,
Aggression.
very. That might have even been. You know what that was? That was the day the sun. Um, was it the North Node? It was the North Node conjunction.
Ah,
That was that day. In fact, one of the girls that I follow, I was sitting in the office after body work, and I was about to leave, and she said, "In 6 minutes, it goes exact, right? So what are you doing, and what's your intention, and whatever." And then I don't know, 20 minutes later, I'm down the road going to try and get half and half on my way home, and this guy gets totally nuts on me. And I call his bluff, right? Fuck around, find out. I stop my truck in the middle of the road, and he runs right into the back of me or under me because he had this little puny car, and I have a lifted truck. So I almost didn't even feel it. But I was just like, really? Like, you can't you can't behave that way. There's no justification for that level of aggression. Doesn't matter if I honk my horn at you and just a little beep, just a little beep, like
yeah,
go. Like no, like that's the bad, that's the undesirable side of Aries, is that
right,
right there.
right. I'm calling it the shadow of the Red Warrior.
Ah, there you
So
go.
the shadow of
Yeah,
the Red Warrior, like, so either you're always looking for a fight, like, everything is a fight. You have, and
yeah,
it's like one of the things that's interesting because it's like an initiating energy, right? It's like sometimes it's like maybe if I'm going to add the layer of Chiron on it and infancy and initiation into physical form, it's very
right.
possible that like you've always had to feel like you've had to fight for your life. It may have been a bit, like it may have been a difficult birth, even, that whole birth process. And if you are stuck there, like some part of you is stuck in that fight to get out of the birth canal, it's kind of like in order for you to initiate into anything, you're going to create a fight. So
Mm.
because you have that going on in your subconscious. And then so and it's also like it's possible that if you're trying to start something, if you're trying to get your fire lit, like to use your fire, and you are not in that balanced Aries, you may feel like you have to create a fight, like to start just to get your fire up, which, then that's saying that there's an imbalance that because it's about assertiveness. It's about the ability to just start something, but some people may get in that shadowy area. And the other thing is that they may never start anything. Like they may be so dampened, their fire might be so deficient that they feel like they have no energy, no joy for life, no
They're
want.
afraid.
They're afraid. Yeah, they're afraid.
They're afraid to make decisions. They're afraid of criticism. They're
Mhm,
afraid of people telling them no. They're
mhm.
afraid of running into any type of obstacle. They're afraid to do what they want to do, and these people are at the whim of their environment and everybody else around them, and public approval.
Yeah. So yeah, so you have to really like think about,
They don't give their self permission.
yeah.
They need somebody else.
So then you're not near an authority. So it's like when I think of
Ah,
Aries, it's like it's because it's an A, so it's like numerologically it's a one, right? So it's like gonna start, gonna be assertive, gonna be an authority, gonna move forward, gonna go, 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 right? It's gonna want to have that. And there could be other things in the chart, like even if you have an Aries sun, if you have other things in the chart going on, you might not,
certain
understand.
generations of Aries sons have a whole bunch of Pluto or Pisces trailing them.
Oh.
So, what do you think it's like to be an Aries but have all your personal planets behind you in Pisces? I know one. I actually think I know a couple.
Oh,
The,
wow.
oh, he's got no spine. He's got no spine. And it's
Yeah,
unfortunate,
yeah, that
right?
that, that
And,
is
and then
unfortunate.
there's people. Well, it's not actually being an Aries sun, but there's a lot of Taurus people of a certain generation that have all their personal planets trailing in Aries. So it's a dominant energy in their chart, but it's not exactly what they're leading with, and sometimes it can be in conflict with the the nature of the way that they move.
Hmm. I'm just sitting here going, so Aries is the top of the head, yeah? Isn't it the top of the head?
Yep, it's the head.
It's the head, right? So there could also be like we're looking physiologically, like you could be having eye things, headaches, you could be having all kinds of like head or even vision, because Aries is related to sight. So you could be having, visual disturbances, or it could be like you're maybe a veil is disintegrating and you're able to see things that you weren't able to see
Oh, yes.
before.
Well, that's what the Chiron thing is doing. It's going to bring things
Mm.
into your vision, or yeah, like the unearthing of things. The if you've kept things buried and you haven't looked at what needs to get sorted out, then it's going to probably come crashing in some way.
Right. You can even look at, and I'm not even thinking like teeth issues, or you could be even looking like the whole head. I mean, people like it could be and allergies. Like could be looking at a whole bunch of stuff coming up. Yeah, I know.
I, yeah. Um, no, the first house deals with your physical appearance,
Right.
deals with what you look like, right? Your rising sign, which is at the cusp of the beginning of the first house, has a
Mhm.
lot to do with how you appear. And if you know somebody who has Aries rising, they are very concerned with what they look like. I
Ah,
mean, sometimes to a detriment, right? Sometimes that could be very, very shallow. There's obviously so many components in a chart. You can't just say that makes them shallow, but they can put too much emphasis on their body and their appearance and stuff like that.
so um, and I'm just thinking about that, like, because it's not hair, Leo's like hair, but this is just the head. Like it's not
Well,
necessarily.
what you look like, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
all the fire signs are actually kind of about what they look like in a way. I know that Libra gets that like to a fault, but
Mhm.
the fire signs, yeah. And Virgo needs everything to look a certain way, very clean. It can't be scattered. It can't be, you know, you can't have hair out of place. You can't have shit on your shoes. You can't have like that's like, Virgos just don't do that. Well, obviously, badly aspected Virgos or people with a lot of Pisces and Virgo, maybe that they look sloppy, but typically a Virgo does not look sloppy.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of.
Right, right. But yeah, no, all of fire signs need to be like it needs to look good.
That's funny. So, so that could be like it's interesting. We might see more people like acting out of vanity or being, really, it could be like butthurt, about certain things, and really sensitive about you know, their.
Well, okay. Okay, we're just gonna call out the early 50 somethings and the late 40 somethings right now, because either they just had a Chiron return or they're
Right.
coming to a Chiron return. And I guess there's different levels of a midlife crisis. I don't really know what the approved age or transit is of a midlife crisis, but I can tell you right now, I'm currently having a long drawn out Uranus opposition because it retrograded. And I'm having a Neptune square, and I'm approaching, because it's going to take it takes like 5 more years, maybe. I'm approaching my Chiron return,
Ah,
right? So aging is what happens and if you haven't taken care of yourself and you don't continue to take care of yourself, you don't really like the way you age. And then you have this extreme response, right? To try and like pull it all in or like catch up or like, I don't know what, like, like
fix it. Just like-
fix it. Like, I mean, yeah, like you start, losing your hair or like your face is falling off or your tits are on the floor. I mean, I don't know. Like you get all these things.
all the things. So,
Right.
so
Like,
the,
like
right.
scramble, try to how to deal, right? Like all of a sudden. So that superficiality about appearance is probably, you're probably gonna notice it like at least in a handful of people that are maybe close to you, right? I mean,
So,
depending on
yeah.
your or the type of job you have.
So, so things could like get really loud that really need attention, and maybe like my sense is that we probably need to focus on self-care a little bit more anyway. Like, so we have to do, I feel like everybody can like double down on self-care, or shift their self-care, change and make it a priority. So they set a boundary to their, for their self-care. So I think that this is going to be like very interesting. I'm kind of interested to see like how this whole day goes, how it plays out, how what I hear from clients, as what's they're experiencing through this. And
Uh-huh.
I know like I have people reaching out like last minute, like I need all of a sudden, like, I need help. I'm like, okay, like so I already know it's because of this kind of like this whole portal that's happening.
Right.
And it's like, think about it, like the sun is being eaten by the moon. You can think about it that way. It's kind of like if the sun is it's dying, right? It's dying by being eaten by the moon, and then it's being reborn. Like I think about that in our charts, like thinking about, well, is the moon stuff going to get louder? You know, um, and then what does that mean as we rebirth into like
Oh
this?
my God, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Moon and Aries. The moon in Aries makes people terrible. And I hate to say it like that, but it just makes them terrible. Because there's there's a joke in astrology that there should be support groups everywhere for people who have parents or at least a mother with their moon in Aries.
Oh boy.
Like the whole thing, I personally have one. But it's like one of my favorite astrology groups is by this guy who does nothing but tell these crazy ass stories about his mother who has a moon in Aries. He happens to be Hawaiian. I mean, he lives on the mainland now, but he's from Kauai actually.
Oh,
And he
really?
stories that I'm just like, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, drugs and just temper, and like she stabbed her husband at one point, like not like to death, but like in the leg or in the whatever in the arm
What
because
is
of her.
what is it about the moon in Aries, like that moonlight shining through Aries that causes that, do you think?
It's just so counter to the moon. Okay, the moon is a water representation.
Ah, so it's that water and fire.
So if the moon is a ruler of Cancer, then Cancer's the mom.
Hmm.
Cancer is like, big squishy boob that you like snuggle up on. That's like Cancer energy, right?
Yeah.
And Aries is like the crybaby warrior and is going to lash out at you and be highly reactionary if it's not self-reflective and if it's not grounded, it'll be very reactionary. And the moon in Aries makes people do stupid things and makes them act out because it's so hot tempered.
And it's also like the moon, we think about the moon in relationship to emotions too. And if
Yeah.
you're like
And I
in,
wasn't even this whole time. Well, all the eclipses, it means the moon is eclipsing the sun. It means it's going to be in Aries also. Well, duh. That's probably going to be actually, that might be the secret, most difficult part of the whole transaction is the moon making that pass because the moon's passing the sun. It's going to hit the north node and it's going to hit Mercury on its way out in Aries, all that in Aries. So yeah, emotions will be high.
okay, so that's it's good to know. Like if anyone's been feeling emotional, it's kind of like you can look to see like this is being stirred up for a reason, right? It's like these emotions are being stirred up. And I think if you're very empathic, to be mindful that you're not just kind of tuning in to the like whatever emotions are in the environment. That you're more clear about your own emotions, what's being stirred up in you, and not what's being stirred up in the collective or in your environment. So just be mindful.
I think that like what can be said is because Aries energy can be so reactive and so emotional, like the master Aries has that under control. Like the ultimate, like ninja,
Hmm.
um, Jedi
Yeah.
discipline would be to like be in control of that, harnessing it and not letting it get the better of them. But typically what we encounter with Aries is that volatile, really quick, um, reactionary energy, which then, I mean, then will cause somebody else to go into reactionary mode and
Mhm.
not think necessarily before they speak. And then, like, like that dude that ran into the back of my car or under my truck. I
Right.
got out, I got out of the truck and I stood in the middle of the road and I was like, what? Big fat dude, too. Big dude in this little car. And I was like, really? What are you gonna do? And he started to get out of the car and then he didn't. He stayed in the car. Because what? Like now you just made a scene and this is dumb.
Right.
And I'm gonna drive away now. Bye. And that's what I did. But like it was so stupid.
So there's all this stuff running around. It's like highly charged. It feels there's
Super high
yeah.
charged.
And I'm just gonna bring in like the I'm gonna call it like the psychopathic brouhaha, like all this the psychopaths that, are trying to like basically just think about like one of the things if you're going to be like a ninja Jedi, right, with your emotions, no matter where where your moon is in the chart or how this impacts you, then you have to know that they're going to use this. Like, so they just want people to like output emotion. They want people to output all this stuff so they can use it for their own purposes
Yeah,
to
they want
right. And so I'm even going to talk about this in the light of the new cage movement. I'm going to say this because I think this is an important thing. There are a lot of these um practitioners that will try to get you to emote. They want you to have a release and like of emotion, like an outburst, like an uncontrolled like outburst. Like sometimes, yes, you need to process that and have this stuff. But what I recognize is that though this is like a symbol of what's happening collectively with these psychopaths, is that those people that are leading the group, whatever spirits are influencing them, they're influencing them to get the people to emote so that they feed off of that emotion instead of teaching people how to process the emotions themselves, the charge, how to reintegrate the charge behind the emotion without um, creating the same story again from it. So I see them as like a little mini version of what happens collectively. These kind of people that lead these groups. I see a lot in women's circles.
oh yeah.
So
Wonder I've never wanted to be part of one.
Yeah, I don't really, it doesn't, it feels forced. So the other thing is like things you will process if you allow yourself, you can process in your own time, right? In your own, if you just allow, life will push you to, to process. And yes, sometimes these things are beneficial, and I'm not saying you shouldn't use them or you shouldn't. If that works for you, that's great, but just be mindful. Don't allow your emotional charge to be used to support others. Use it for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where the wisdom comes in. If you don't, from the wound to
Bound,
the boundaries, that's right.
have a bound, keep it contained. Don't let it bleed all over somebody else, and don't funnel it to somebody else.
Right.
Don't give it to,
Yeah.
don't get tricked into giving it to them.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, because so that's like a little kind of like, it's not really off topic because I see a lot of this in like I see a lot of these groups, and I see a lot of these people, processing. I even see it in breath work where they're trying to, it's like the breath work, like even rebirthing breath work, where um, so if people who are leading that, like they don't know, if they don't have good psychic boundaries and they don't understand there are spirits that want to feed off of the emotions of others, they just open the door to those things and to those kind of beings, you know, these other dimensional beings, I just call them that want to feed off of your energy, like they call it loosh, right? They're trying to get you to, it's like a narcissist. Basically, it's like a narcissist. So a narcissist will push you into having some kind of emotional reaction and then tell you that you're crazy, right? So it's the same, that's the energy that's like behind it. And these people that are leading these groups don't say that, and they don't necessarily act as narcissists, but it's important that you understand, like you don't necessarily need to be pushed into an emotional um release before you're ready. Like, because then I see all these women that are like just deciding they need to have an emotional release to fit in.
Really?
It's a very odd thing. It's very, very odd. So yeah, so this is just this is like, it's like another, what I would say, like just watch this and watch how people, like I'm waiting for all the people to start reacting on social media. Like like I'm waiting for more outbursts on social media, more outrage.
Huh. I
Yeah.
guess I don't.
Yeah, well, I don't see it on my page, but I'm kind of like, sometimes you get a little something here or there, or I see it on someone else's, you know.
Right.
So, is there anything else you think we need to look at, or
Well, I guess there's other astrology happening that people are bringing in. And I guess I should have checked the chart to see what the aspect was, but I don't want it to be too complicated. I think that just talking about the eclipse astrology is like good. Like we don't need to keep going and going and going and
no,
like,
no, I feel like this is enough, because you want to know, like, one, it's like if you feel like you need to like look at how you might be thinking you're an asshole by saying no, you've got to let go of that, like, because sometimes you just need to say no, and just watch for the charged emotions that are kind of around, and make sure you're not getting sucked into those charged emotion suckles.
yeah, just practicing no. And if guilt and shame comes up, you have to be aware of it and look at it, but don't let it take control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't, yeah, like saying no is really, really important. Like you said, it's a huge spiritual and like lesson.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. It's a um you think about it like this, right? When you're um think about children and like their parents, and their parents say no, and the child keeps asking and asking and asking and asking, and the parent has to just hold firm to their no. And what we really want Like, so that's how a child also learns that no really means no, right? Like, you can try all these things, but nothing's happening. This is an absolute no,
Well,
right?
that manipulation doesn't work. And then later on, you learn the other side of it where you don't let yourself become manipulated.
Right.
Like maybe I guess if you're raised with strong boundaries as a kid, like when your parents tell you no, no is no. Like I grew up like there was no breaking down my mother. My mother said no, that was it. Like it was old school. I'll give you something to cry about. Like cut it
Mhm.
out.
Yeah.
Right. So now maybe because I was raised like that, manipulation doesn't work on me.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So
Sorry, we're
yeah,
not that to move along.
like, so if your parents didn't uphold a no, it might be hard for you to uphold no.
Well, yeah.
So it's and honestly, like if you've ever trained a dog, you need to have no, like they don't understand no, but they understand when they're, it's like,
The
they under
vibration of
yeah.
where it comes out of the body, right? The
Yeah.
resonance of that's what they get.
Yeah. Like you should be able to just look at your dog and they know they shouldn't do it. They'll look at you and they'll go, oh, and they'll stop. Like that's the kind of thing. Like I feel like it's like that kind of communication should be between you if you have a dog. Like that's the way it should be. When they're puppies, they push,
Yeah.
so they learn no because you set the tone, you set the
I
boundaries.
constantly tell them no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's just
exactly.
like whatever. They know. Get off that chair, don't do that, or whatever it is. Like they know.
They know, right? They know, no. That's always
They know no.
that's always interesting. So I'm going to share, if it's okay, I want to share a little bit of a somatic practice to help with this eclipse energy, right? If that's okay with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so
I don't know why I thought I was talking to like somebody else, like everybody who's watching. I don't know.
what was I talking about? Is it okay with you with that? So Um, one of the things I heard Paul Chek say, who he has the Chek Institute, but he was saying the difference between the soul and the spirit. He's like the soul is like the drum, and the spirit is the person who bangs the drum. And that set something off in me that I thought was interesting to think about. So you have to activate the soul, right? You have to do something. So one of the things, because we're working on, this is a solar eclipse, so we should work on our solar energy. So we should look at our solar plexus. So I'm going to invite everybody to have like loose hands and drum your solar plexus
Mm.
so that you're creating a vibration there, because the solar plexus tends to get really, really impacted by emotions, and by like I don't want to just say like just programming. Like, so I could use the word ego, but I think there are ways to use your ego consciously. I'm not vilifying ego, but we can get trapped in a little bit of like fear or worry or doubt and make decisions based on that. So just drum your solar plexus. And if you bring your awareness into your solar plexus, you can just thank it, right? Thank your solar energy. And thank your soul. The soul, SOL, SOUL, SOLAR is the same. And so you're just using the drum to activate and let these things come, ask these things that need to be transmuted into a more soul aligned energy for you, into more nurturing your soul alignment. You can ask them to kind of start to come to the surface and be transmuted through the drumming. And when you feel like, and you can go faster, you can go slower, you do what feels right for you. And when it feels complete, you just sit and just feel your solar plexus, have a more clear feeling of in this area, and thank your solar energy for guiding you in a soul aligned way moving forward. And so this way, as we go through this eclipse, as your solar energy is being rebirthed, right? You're rebirthing into what you want to create for yourself, whatever that is, and being led by that soul energy that you have, your soul's knowing. So I hope that's just a little tool. And you can actually bang on the back of the solar plexus too if you want. You can do it with a loose fist depending on where you are. And if you can't get your arm back there, you can actually just put something that has like a ball and like kind of push against it, rock back into it so that you're activating that back area. But if you can tap it, that's even better. So I hope that was helpful. Because I feel good. It feels so nice. It feels so good just to like give that area some attention.
I'm gonna do it later when I'm not holding the phone.
Yeah, I know, I know. I know you're I know it's not like you're going, I'm not doing that.
No, yeah,
You're
I
holding the phone.
haven't set it up yet. I have to get
Yeah, we're
some
kind of like low tech over here. We're just trying
right.
to figure this all out. So the one thing I want to say is if you want to have Whitney bring her genius to look at your chart, right? If you want her, then I would suggest you reach out to her. You can message her Rogue Jedi on Facebook. Um, if you are interested in some somatic practices to help you get through the eclipse or to create soul alignment, you can reach out to me. And if you feel like you want to donate or contribute, I will post, I'll just post my email and you can do it through PayPal if you want to contribute. And then I split that with Whitney, even though, so just so you're all aware. So she'll tell you that I do. So we hope that was helpful. And then if you have questions, feel free to like post questions underneath. Not like specific questions meant necessarily about your chart. I would say if you have specific questions, then definitely reach out to Whitney for her to look at your chart. I find her looking at my chart very helpful. It's helped me to get a lot of clarity. And so it's one of the reasons, besides that fact that we're friends, that I want to like hang out with her and just um tell you like how great it like the amount of clarity I've gotten from Whitney, I haven't like about the tropical chart, I have not received from anybody else ever. So I just want to say that it's been very, very beneficial for me. So I hope you'll reach out to her. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah. Anything else? Anything? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you want to find out where, if where your Aries is or where, or maybe you want to find out like, especially I would say relationship charts, like synastry charts. I know that's like Whitney's very good at that too. So yeah. So we hope you fare well through this eclipse portal, and then we'll let you know the next thing we're going to talk about soon. We're going to try to do this more regularly. So you can also make requests about what you might want us to talk about.
that's actually I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Like interactive, like something somebody wants us to address.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So ask away, and then we'll just come on and we'll do a whole thing about it. We'll do a thing.
Yeah,
All right.
we'll do the thing. We'll just keep doing this thing.
We'll just keep doing this thing. So what I'm gonna do is figure out how to stop the live stream, and then it'll be on Facebook. And you can access it whenever you want. And underneath that, you can ask for your next requests of what you want us to say. I'm also going to put this on YouTube too. So anyone on YouTube, you can always put your requests in the comments, and then we'll do a video about that. So lots of joy and aloha. Bye, everyone. Arg, signing off, the pirates.
All right.